and welcome to episode 2 of the Caffeinated Marketing Podcast. Today is Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. My name is Becky, and I'll be your host. Welcome to the podcast, y'all. I'm very excited that you're here. We had a first episode the other day that really just gave you a quick introduction to what we're here to do, but today is the day that we really start to get into it. So we're going to spend a little bit of time today talking about what does it mean to be caffeinated? And in my mind, that is all about what does it mean to get you ready to boost your marketing efforts with the value that AI can bring for you. We're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about the mindset shifts that you need to make, the things that you need to be doing in terms of the way that you approach your work, the way that the fundamental work of marketing is and isn't changing. So I'm really excited that you're here. Really excited to jump into this work together. First, a little bit of a confession. You'll see a lot of coffee imagery in the brand for the podcast and for my personal brand. I am actually a person who drinks most of my caffeine carbonated. So you'll often catch me with a Coke Zero, a Diet Dr. Pepper. I do love a good cup of tea, but I'm not actually much of a coffee drinker. But I love the analogy of caffeine and that boost that gets you through the day. And then as we think about AI and our marketing work, how can it be the boost that gets us through our day? At the center of all of this is you. You are the human who is going to make connections with other humans to try to persuade them to buy a service, buy a product. That is the foundational, fundamental work of marketing, and that's not changing. Marketing at its heart is about human connection, engagement, and persuasion. And a lot of our conversations in the podcast are going to talk about what is that art and science of connection, engagement, and persuasion, and how do we leverage AI to improve upon that? Can we get insights about our customer? Can we get insights about performance of engagement? Can we measure our ability to persuade? Can we expand the reach of the things that we're doing? Can we get there faster or try new tactics because AI is here? At the end of the day, you are still the strategic mind at the base of all of that work, and that's not going anywhere. I think when we get into some of the topics that we're going to cover and we talk to some of the experts about where we are today with AI, where we're going, but what the limitations are, hopefully that's really going to show you that this doesn't happen without a human. And then we're going to talk a little bit about ethics along the way. And I'll bring this up a lot, particularly in the episode today. But one of the things that's important to talk about is every time you use AI, you are training an algorithm to do better. Now, you are benefiting from that, hopefully, with the work that it produces for you, but others are benefiting off of your work when you do that. And I think there are some interesting ethical conversations to have about that, especially for AI models and tools that you're paying to use. And then, your insights make the model smarter and that increases their ability to monetize. It becomes a little bit of a snake eating its own tail. But I do think that's a conversation that is worth having. And I think it's really important, particularly to think about what information you are and are not willing to give to AI, particularly when we think about enterprise marketing, really any marketing work. You need to proceed with caution and think about the guardrails that are or are not in place, depending on what tools you're using for anything that might be proprietary to you. So, is there competitive differentiation, competitive intelligence, customer information that you would like to have insights on? A lot of us don't really peek behind the curtain to understand what the model is going to do with that data after we've input it. So I think those are really interesting and exciting questions that we're going to all dig into together. I want to start by just talking a little bit about the myth of the 10,000 hour rule. So uh, Malcolm Gladwell has a book called Outliers. I had to read it for a workbook club several years ago, and I found it really interesting. I don't know that I believe in the 10,000 hour rule, and there's been a lot of debunking of that rule. But the 10,000 hour rule says in order to master any skill, you need to give it 10,000 hours. Now, if we think about a typical work year, your finance friends are going to tell you that that's 2,080 hours a year. So 10,000 hours is 5 years of your life. We don't have 5 years to master AI. AI is moving so fast that if it took someone 5 years to master it, you will have been left in the dust long ago. In the book, what Malcolm Gladwell talks about is the ways in which dedicating yourself to mastery can be beneficial. So there's a bunch of examples in the book. He talks about Bill Gates having access to a computer, and he talks about hockey players, little bitty hockey players in Minnesota, and what the age cutoff is for the under 4 versus the under 5 league for Pee Wee hockey. And that they've done studies that have shown that depending on when your birthday is, that impacts how early you can start playing hockey, but then when you get to high school and it's all by grade, or you get to college and it's all, high school graduates, some of those kids who had a birthday that allowed them to start playing hockey earlier than their friends, they've got more ice time. They mastered those basic skills earlier, and there's a correlation between how young you were when you first hit the ice and how your performance was when you got older. So I really want to challenge all of us to think about our work with AI in a similar way. You are only going to get better by doing. Certainly, there are some things that I'm going to talk about where you're going to get better by thinking, and we're going to really consider the ways in which we prompt, the ways in which we leverage AI. But it's a learn by doing skill for sure. And I'm excited to leave you during most episodes with some thinking that you can do about ways that you can just do basic little things with AI that gets your hands on the keyboard, that are hopefully sometimes very low stakes, and just make you feel more comfortable with the way that you're using it. And we're going to balance that with helpful uses and ethical and ecological trade-offs, and we're going to have all of those conversations here on the podcast. My favorite conversation, and I'll pick on a friend, not by name, because my hope is that she might be listening. But a couple of months ago, a friend of mine posted a really cute video to her LinkedIn story. She had her headshot, and she had run that headshot through a tool called Pica. And Pica then brought in hands from either side, and they squished her like she was Play-Doh. And Pica's got all sorts of cute little features like that where you can use a template and you can say, blow it up. And I made a video of my son's dog blowing up like a balloon and floating away. You can say, crumble it, and you can watch the Parthenon or the Colosseum crumble to dust. And so those are pretty neat and pretty fun novelty things. But are they useful? Are they helpful? Did anybody need a video of my dog blowing away like a balloon? I don't think they did. So that discernment of where is AI helpful and where is AI interesting and a novelty, I think is something that's going to serve you well as you start on this journey. As we get into it, I have a framework that I've been calling Your AI May Be Funny, but Does It Have a Sense of Humor? And we're going to dig into that quite a bit. To talk about Pica just for one more minute, what I did like about the video that my friend created was it showed me the capabilities that AI video has in terms of understanding the image that needs to stay behind. So if I manipulate an image and my dog blows away or my friend gets squished like Play-Doh, I still need to understand, what did the ground look like under the dog? AI can't see what the ground looks like under the dog. It's going to make some assumptions, and it's going to try its best to paint in the difference. So I did find that to be pretty interesting. One of the things you'll hear me say a lot is, if this is the lowest quality that AI is ever going to be, it's pretty impressive. And so as we move forward, some of these things like blowing my dog up maybe are just the test case for more interesting, more relevant use cases. So no investment in AI is likely to be wasted investment at this really explosive stage where new capabilities are happening all the time. But I do think there's opportunities to be discerning in where you spend your time and what you think will have impact on your work. One of the things that I'm working on right now is a guidebook that will take you week by week through some exercises. Sometimes they will be very practical exercises, and sometimes they will be prompting exercises, and other times they're going to be thought exercises about how you master AI in your work. And this is part shameless plug for the book, but also part just a thought exercise in itself. So every week, can you set aside a little bit of time? Maybe it's every day. Maybe it's the first 15 minutes of your morning over your morning caffeinated beverage. But how do you start to think about how am I going to get better at AI today, tomorrow, this week, next month? And maybe be a little bit structured and have a little bit of a plan. Get to a goal that says, if I need to master email marketing, I'm going to do these 5 things to try to make my prompting better, to give better inputs, to try to work on personalization or industry veneers or things that'll make a difference in your work. And then time bound them and challenge yourself. Give yourself that 30 minutes on Monday morning or hour and a half Friday afternoon when you've blocked your time for work to really exercise those muscles and think about what it's going to take for you to be successful. One of the things that I do think is really important is to talk about when we use AI and when we don't. So it's real easy, I think, to think a couple of things. I think it's really easy to say, I am using AI in my work. And that might just be that I am having AI take meeting notes and recap action items for me and assign work to other people. That is a use of AI and it's helpful as heck. But that's not necessarily stretching the capabilities that are available to us today. How are you thinking about the ways that you can expand your usage and use them in ways that drive definitive benefit? Recently, the Times of London had a piece that talked about the fact that one email written by ChatGPT requires enough cooling capacity to equal a bottle of water. And as we think about the impact of that, what does that mean from not just that cooling perspective and the ecological impact, but now you start to think about, okay, that query leaves your keyboard or travels across a network. There's compute, there's storage, there's power, there's cooling, and all of those things to get you an email that says, hey, I'd like to have a meeting. Here's the agenda. You probably could have done that yourself. And so, what are your choices? What's your demarcation line to say, hey, this is what's worth and not worth the use of AI for me? I think really having a discerning sense around what's actually better is a really good tool in your toolkit. One of the most fun things I've done recently, I'm working with a startup client and we did an AI decathlon. And so the AI Decathlon is a workshop that I run where you run through 10 different exercises, each assigned with a marketing task. So we make up a fictional company. That way you're not bogged down in your work. We run naming tests. We do messaging. We do differentiation. We create some content. We create some video. And it's a 4 hour intensive workshop where you really get to exercise that 10,000 hour rule. Get your hands on the keyboard and just give things a try. What I'm most excited about that model for is this client that I've worked with has seen a tremendous shift just in the mindset of their team since we did the workshop. So they've been writing proposals, doing prospecting, developing their ideal customer profile. And I think in 2024, there's been a lot of focus naturally on generative AI as a source of content creation. But I think if you can get to really solid prompting, think of yourself almost like a database administrator. The better your query is, the better your outputs are going to be. So, how do you think about getting yourself to some of those queries that will help you drive better outcomes? How are you sharpening what you're giving to AI? And we're going to spend a lot of time really talking about head-to-head querying. Can you use AI to help you write a better prompt? How do you start to teach it your voice? Do you know your voice well enough to describe it to a model? So if I'm thinking about my personal brand and voice. I tend to be upbeat, maybe a little bit sarcastic, maybe a little bit enthusiastic. How do I merge that with a brand voice where, depending on who I work for, might be more conservative, a little more stoic, a little more factual or matter of fact? And so blending those two things together to come up with a set of prompts that makes it still feel like the work is yours is really important and is really going to be a key thing. There are a lot of articles and opinions right now about how to spot AI content. I don't really care if it's AI content. What I care about is it compelling content? And so, I've talked a couple times already today about email, but is email compelling content, or is the compelling content something that the reader could not have gotten without you? Are you pulling together facts, data, a story in a way that is unique to you, that shows your unique value? And then how are you using AI to enhance that? Are you taking that content and creating exciting video with it? Are you taking that content and breaking it up into usable components that people can consume more easily? I think that is where a lot of this gets really exciting. Fairly far-ranging episode today. Going forward, we will get a lot more focused on single issues, but I wanted to just ground you in what I'm here to do and what I hope we'll be able to do together, and a little bit of my philosophy today. So thank you for being here. Cheers, friends. Let's get caffeinated.